Hi, this is number 4. And so Arthur was on his mission, doing missionary work in Canada, and there's some very exciting stories about Arthur and his mission because Arthur always got exciting things going. And I was called to go to Scotland on my mission. In those days, as I said before, the church was small. A stake president did not have the authority to even interview a missionary. You had to have a general authority come to interview you for a call. And then the call was made by David O. McCabe personally, with his own handwriting on stuff. And then he went to Salt Lake for 1 week. Didn't matter where you went in the world for a mission. You had 1 week at the mission home, which was not to teach you a language. That you'd learn in the mission field. What they did was introduce you to the leadership of the church. After all, you are representing the apostles, whose job it was to be a special witness of Jesus Christ in all the world, and so they're the ones who put their hands on your head and set you apart. And Harold B. Lee was the apostle who set me apart. I walked in the room and introduced myself, and he said, McOmber, said, how are you related to Calvin McOmber? And I said, either my grandfather or my uncle. He said, I meant the patriarch. I said, either my grandfather or my uncle. He said, I think he'd be your grandfather. He'd be an older gentleman. I said, he's the patriarch of the stake where we're standing right now. He's moved here in Salt Lake. He's the patriarch of Salt Lake Stake, where we're standing right now. He said, wonderful old man. I said, thank you. And then he set me apart from my mission, and I went to Scotland, which was fabulous. Perfect mission for me. I only had 2 transfers, my whole mission. I arrived in Scotland and was assigned to East Kilbride by my mission president, whose name was Bernard Brockbank, who later became a general authority. And he left me there for 10.5 months. So I started as a junior companion, and then after a period of time I was the branch president and had a whole bunch of juniors. And then Bernard Brockbank came to me and said, would you do anything I'd ask you to do? I said, absolutely. He said, how about being a junior companion? I said, I'd love to be a junior companion. So he said, I've got an elder, and he has someone that he believes he has to baptize into the church, and he won't leave his area, and the Spirit won't let me get him out of there. So he spent 3 weeks without a companion sitting in his digs. You'll be his junior companion. I said, great. The next day, I was at Loch Lomond, Scotland, and I met Jan Graff, who was a fabulous missionary. And I said when I got there, I understand that you have someone that you feel the Lord wants you to bring into the church here. He said, I do. He said, my problem is I can't find him, and I've attracted the entire area. Everybody in all the 3 little towns that are there, and I can't find who it is. And I've been searching for months now. And I said, okay, we'll start again tomorrow. So in the morning, we got up and got ready, and I said, okay, what happened when you attracted this street? He said, what do you mean this street? I said, when you attracted this street? He said, well, I didn't track this street, this is where I live. I said, it's pretty easy, we'll start here. So we went out. The second door we knocked on, first door that opened was a lady named Sheila Morgan. And Sheila Morgan invited us in. We knew when she opened the door who it was. He taught the first 2 discussions on the spot. To make a long story short, her husband was the man who ran the sawmill and the lumber business, which employed half the town. Most important businessman in the town. And Sheila Morgan, in that first wonderful discussion, which we did lesson 1 and lesson 2, and left her copy of the Book of Mormon, and she gave the prayer at the end, and it was, we all could feel the Spirit. So she joined the church, and her husband joined the church, and they were used by the mission president to go around. Of course, he did open doors, but he would go around when President Brockbank was giving talks, and he would be one of those who'd speak with him, just part of the thing. And right enough, Jan Graff was right. The Lord wanted us to get the Morgans into the family. Then, about 20 years later, I went back to my mission field. And I remembered it because I only moved twice, once to Loch Lomond and from Loch Lomond to downtown Glasgow. So I went back and showed Elizabeth, and I said, you know, let's go see Sheila Morgan. I haven't heard from her for years. And so we went over and knocked on the door, and there wasn't any answer. So I went next door. The lady's name was Baxter. I remembered when I tracked to the street earlier, 20 years earlier. So I knocked on the door, and she came. I said, Mrs. Baxter, I used to be Elder McOmber long ago, and I'm looking for Sheila Morgan, and nobody's answering it. She said, son, Sheila Morgan died 20 years ago. I said, oh, probably why I haven't heard from her. So she said, yes, that's right. I said, I was going to give you a copy of the Book of Mormon when I was here before. Let me give it to you now. So I gave her a copy of the Book of Mormon and went on. But I had many wonderful experiences in Scotland. President Brockbank was succeeded by a fellow named David B. Haight, who later became apostle and in charge of the missionary program for the church. And he gave me my second move. First move was given by President Brockbank. The second move was given from President Haight, where he assigned me to go downtown Glasgow and teach the gospel there, which I did. And it was a lot of fun. I had a great mission with a lot of very wonderful experiences where I knew that the Lord was in charge. We baptized people who'd been introduced to the church by other missionaries before us. And so one of those was a lady in Australia. And she'd had the missionaries call on her in Australia. She had brought her boy, I think she was divorced, had a great big German Shepherd. Biggest German Shepherd I think I ever saw in my life, still. No one ever bothered that lady. And she came to church with Sheila Morgan. And she said, I know the baptismal font that I'll be baptized in because I've seen it in a vision. And it's not, I haven't seen it here. We took all the missionaries and the people who were interested in baptizing to Sauchiehall Hall Street in Glasgow. But when we baptized Sheila Morgan, they were doing work on the building. And so we had to go out to High Blantyre to baptize Sheila there. And so we took them out there, and of course, this sister came with her. And she said, oh, that's the font I'm supposed to be baptized in. So we said, okay, we can arrange that. So we did. So that was fun. When I went back that 20-year visit, her son was the bishop of the ward. So it was just exciting. It was an exciting mission. So many wonderful things happened. And the biggest thing was it was so fun. Being a missionary is the funnest job in the world. I put in time with Uncle Sam as a soldier, and I also put in time as a missionary. And you can learn both with both of them, but being a missionary is far more adventurous.
One of my favorite stories is when Dad met you at the airport. Can Dad share that story when you got home from your mission?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was exhausted from flying all over across the...
That's when they first put jet airplanes in. I flew over in a prop plane. We flew back over the pole into
Yes.
San Francisco, not into Salt Lake. And so we were in San Francisco, and all the family was waiting for me in the San Francisco airport.
Yes, we loaded everybody in the car, and I don't know how we fit him in to come back home. Diana was with me. I'd been married for a few months, and he and Diana made a great friendship that lasted her whole life.
And I remembered that Elizabeth was there, and your sister Susan. And I remember part of the story, tell me if I did this right, that Aunt Susan was very excited to see her big brother home from his mission, but you just strategically put your arm around Aunt Susan and put Elizabeth next to Howard.
Yes. Yes.
That's who we wanted to see.
And that was wonderful. So we had a great time, great relationship forevermore. I think the nicest thing is the gospel's true.